So here we are, the end of December already, and looking back on the year of news around here. Dillon Davis is back with us from the Battle Creek Enquirer. We were just laughing because we feel like we just did this show for last year.
We were just sitting here talking about the top 5 of last year, and
yeah.
I don't know where time goes.
I know, it goes so fast. Here we are at the end of the year, and, well, other things have happened, and we're talking about another list. So we thought we'd get your angle on this. And what do you got, 5 of them this time?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we start, when we do like Casey Kasem does, and start with the big number and work backwards. So number 5 on your list.
May he rest in peace as well.
Right,
We
that's right.
We didn't lose him this year. But
that's right. Well, just about everybody else.
I would say I have a big 4, so I guess 5 depends on kind of what you're interested in.
Okay.
Economic development wise in downtown Battle Creek, the 180 urban buildings at 64 and 119 through 121 West Michigan and 15 Carlisle Street it's a big development. It's a big project. And obviously, recently the land bank has talked about taking 2 of those buildings away, and I think that we're going to see some resolve there. And Heritage Tower is another one that I think we're going to start to see some development here.
Yeah,
certainly within the next coming year.
Two thoughts for you on these things. First of all, I have to laugh because you said number 5 depends on what you like best. We sat in a meeting here and had a casual conversation about the top 5 stories, and we had the same reaction. Well, it could be this or that. We were having trouble. Did you have trouble too?
Yeah, I think I went around the Christmas table and
asked people
a couple of political arguments, but it was fine. But and then I think the other one is the Treehouse Foods and Post cutting jobs coming up here. I think that's. I think I could make a strong argument for that one. I think that's. You look at Battle Creek cereal heritage, and I think that one hits people hard.
Sure.
And when you talk about the area, kind of having a hurt feelings mentality sometimes, and I think it comes from losses within the cereal industry. People just, you don't see a line worker anymore. So it's it's tougher. It's tough to see.
Yeah, cereal here is like Detroit's auto industry or something. And you feel that loss when it happens. And how the industry has changed. You talk about the downtown development issue. We were just talking with the city managers the other day, and they're still quite confident about Heritage Tower. And Ted Deering was even confident enough to say 2017 will probably be the year you start to see things happening there.
With that one, I think there's just so much in the way of a complicated financial stack of programs. It takes a lot to redevelop a property like that has sat vacant for a long time. It's got a lot of issues. They have like a cell phone tower in there, and they've got like an elevator that goes right to the top so they can work on it. But there's some issues with the asbestos and just any other legacy issues that come along with owning a property that's that old and is that vacant for that long. I'm excited. I'm having a meeting about that the first week of the new year, so I'll be curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, right. So. It'll be very interesting to see how that sorts out, and it makes a lot of sense. If you buy or rent a space in a building like that where you have this majestic view and we presume decent surroundings, you want high-speed internet and all these things that come with that, and it's going to take some work in those buildings. So.
Yeah, I think they're certainly hopeful, and I hear people in town wanting to kind of hear some more information about this, and and it's hard for me on a reporting standpoint because there's just not much to know in a public light. Most people aren't going to talk about the programs that are funding it because usually those are tied to other programs, and if those kind of things fall apart in a hurry. You find out what you can know, and then you kind of advance the story as things are going along. So 2017 should be a good year for that. Or certainly an advancing year for seeing where that goes.
Well, and our perception has been the optimism has remained pretty significant there. Maybe you've picked up on that too.
Certainly, yeah.
All right, did we get to number 4?
I think so. Other than the conglomeration that is number 5, I think number 4 would be Western Michigan football.
Oh my gosh!
I think it's so hard not to. I had done up a list and I could not include them in there. I think that they just shocked the world. You know what I mean? They're going down to Dallas coming up here, and we're sending Nick Buckley, one of our sports guys, down there to cover it. And he's trying to find the interesting angles and following some of the local guys, Odell Miller and Casey Carson, and so I think I mean, just PJ Fleck has just energized something. He's tapped into something really profound there, and it's so cool to see.
And that's nice. Years for me in Kalamazoo watching these sorts of things more than once in that almost 20 years it's been. I've noticed that Western is in an interesting spot. They're not big, but they're not small, and so they have to attract certain talent that often becomes a temporary stop for that talent. How do you maintain that? And the Fleck thing is a big part of that. Are they going to be able to keep him or not? Supposedly they're working on that. Haven't heard about a final deal on that yet, so we'll see. But
yeah, credit to Tony Paul from the Detroit News for coming across the extension thing, and also Kathy Beauregard, who's their athletic director, for finding PJ Fleck and getting him to come in. And he's got these fresh ideas. I mean, row the boat doesn't work at Wisconsin. It doesn't work at Michigan State. It has to. You have to go somewhere that is looking for an identity, and you kind of co-opt the community into it.
Yeah,
I went to the game this year against Toledo, and there's people in the crowd with oars.
Yes.
And they're shouting "row the boat," and the fans are engaged in the game. And that you haven't seen that in a long time. So not to say this is their first good season they've ever had, but this is profound. To go to a Cotton Bowl,
right?
That's incredible.
Yes, and it's not been done before by Western, so this is a big deal. That's number 4. We're here with Dillon Davis, the Battle Creek Enquirer, talking about some of the top local stories of 2016. We'll take a break and come back with 3, 2, and 1 coming up. Dillon Davis here, talking about the top news stories of 2016 in our region. All right, number 3, what do you got there?
Well, we were in Kalamazoo on number 4. We're gonna stay there for the Kalamazoo bike crash that happened this year.
Yes,
I mean that was just a tremendous thing. I mean it was tragic. I mean, and it could happen to anybody. You're just riding your bike and the guy hit you. So they lost some people, and you saw the community really come out and rally around that. And
Lance Armstrong
came there.
Yeah.
And he even had the self-awareness where he's like, I may not be you may not have a good opinion of me, but I'm here. I want to help. And and everything I heard is he went out with some of the people and went for drinks with them and just tried to talk to them and get to know their stories. And
wow.
And he wrote about it, I want to say in GQ, or he wrote like a separate thing on it.
I
It was just
I do recall that. Yeah.
And he has no ties to this area at all.
Mm-hmm.
And just to see like Bobby Hopewell from Kalamazoo out there, riding he took a spill that day. And he still was out there rallying the crowd and just see all the bicycle community come together. And it's a strong community.
I think that's a good point to make, that that's what brought Armstrong in, was just that strength. He didn't, as you said, know anybody but he decided, I got to go there.
Certainly, yeah. I think, and I was there the day they had their rally with Armstrong, and there's just a ton of emotion. I interviewed several people who broke down and were crying while I'm talking, because they may not know these people, but they identify with them on a connectable, deep level, and they realize it could be my friend, it could be my husband, it could be my wife, could be anybody.
Right.
And some people they did lose their lives, and now they're gonna Charles Pickett, the alleged person's gonna have to answer to that. So.
Right, and Battle Creek connection to that we'd rather not have, but
certainly.
But there it is. All right, we'll talk about 2 and 1 coming up in just a moment on Dillon's List, WBCK. WBCK, Dillon Davis here from the Battle Creek Enquirer. We're talking about the top stories of 2016. All right, certainly. We're up to number 2 now.
And I would say that I can't really think of anything. I think the Kalamazoo shooting situation from this past winter is, something that sticks out to me. I had debated putting that at number 1 and number 2. I think it depends on what you care about. But I think that one was just very profound. I was on a weekend shift that weekend, and it was just all hands on deck right away.
Absolutely.
We're getting calls from the Free Press because we're the westmost Michigan.com property. So they're like, you need to be there. And they're sending people too. And we had a photographer shooting it who came down, who was living in Muskegon, and you have people, everybody all hands on deck. And
it's kind of interesting. 20 years in Southwest Michigan now that I've been here, breaking news doesn't happen a lot by big city standards. That is to say, when you turn on CNN or Fox and you see breaking news across the screen and some big things happening, generally in places like Battle Creek and Kalamazoo, these things don't happen as often. So when they do, those of us in this business have to make a decision. Is this one of these jump up and go wall-to-wall moments or not?
It was one of those. Each one of our reporters were tasked with going to a different one of the funeral services, and I went to Mary Nye, who is commonly called Mary Jo Nye.
Right.
Her family doesn't care for that. In Baroda, and we went down there, and it was myself and a photographer, and we went down and just sat in and there's some stories where it's just you just can't help but feel it. You're stone faced when you're there, and then
right.
you tear up and you're kind of upset on the way home.
Yeah.
It's something that keeps you up the night, and that was one of those. I think that no matter where you were in the community, if you're Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, Marshall, I think in this area people felt a connection to that, and those families and. And following Abby Koff and her family this year has been. I got to meet her very recently, and just to see her and her family coming along and just trying to come to grips with what happened.
Right.
I mean, I think it's such I think I said profound before, but I think it's just that's what I felt. I was like, man, I'm so happy to meet you.
Right. You try to balance your emotions with the reporter instinct. Yeah, certainly. It's a bit of a job sometimes, and stories like that are a good example of that. Well, here we are at number one. What's on your number one section of your list here?
I think, locally, nationally, in the state of Michigan, the United States, I think the election is I think there's no way that you can look at that. I mean, you had an upset at the presidency level. I mean, Donald Trump came out of nowhere. He touched into something that was deep in the Republican Party, and he rode that to an electoral college victory. So I think what you see from that is you see on a local level, people unseated in areas that you just didn't expect.
Right.
The treasurer's office, the Water Resources Commissioner were two that I didn't think would go that way.
Right.
So you're losing two good people, getting two other good people in, and you're just. So I think talking about issues of straight ticket voting, and there's conversations to be had about that. But certainly there's a new something coming along here. Yeah. I mean, it's for sure.
As you went around that Christmas table and asked those questions, was that number one on most people's list? I
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think. And my allegiance has always been to sensibility. So someone can make a sensible, conversation of it, and because I think that's where I would really like to go in this next year, where you could have a thoughtful conversation, and people are, become good news consumers, where they can see something like this and they can kind of try to decipher it themselves and pick out good news sources, and and it's not the news source that boycotts a company. You know what I mean? That's not a good news source. So I think obviously the election is what people are talking about, and I think the fallout from that and the results of that remain to be seen, both good and bad. I think that's 2017 is going to be interesting. Appreciate
your thought about that, about the sensibility of things. I've been trying to figure out how I'll impart to students about news these days, and the notion that some things you read out there that come readily to you now, social media, wherever. Might not be accurate, and journalism has changed, hasn't it?
Certainly, yeah. And I think we need to get to a point, within the next couple of years because I think censorship used to be the big thing.
Yeah.
My former boss, Mac McCullough, would talk about it. Censorship was the big thing,
yep.
And now it's the flooding of information. People cannot decipher what is true and false, and then most people do not take the time to do that.
That's the challenge.
You tend to read what you like. News is much more selective, and it's a two-way conversation so much more than it's ever been. And with the election, you saw a flooding of alternative media, kind of waving in. And I think journalists debated how they could cover the election. You have to, if someone tells a lie, you have to call it a lie.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much of just. Where's the line? And you said you teach journalism a little bit, so you're trying to find out what the line is, and where because we're in a different time.
It's kind of interesting because in media of old, you could listen to a radio station or look at a newspaper and arrive at some conclusions about the quality of the way it looked or the quality of the way it sounded and say, okay, maybe that's not a good source. Now, when you look at something that comes across on your Facebook or on your phone, something that is untrue might look just as good as something that is true when you're looking at it in front of you in that form.
Certainly, if you're looking through rose-colored lenses too, you're looking through
Right.
whatever you want to see.
That's true.
And sometimes you see, it's these one candidate's a baby killer, or whatever the case, whatever you want to read is out there.
Yeah.
So I think there's a time where we need to do accurate vetting, and the media is on the hook for holding people accountable this
Yes.
time around, and making sure that things that get said are going to get done. I mean, you're coming off a presidency that was not known for transparency.
Yeah.
And you're going to have another one that's going to be just like that.
Probably.
Someone coming from the private sector who, he says what he wants to say.
Mhm.
So I think that you have a very, very fascinating time coming up, and it's going to be challenging for the news industry. So
Deep breath. All right,
I just wanted to say too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank the community for reading along with the Enquirer this year. People will listen in, watching on Facebook, whatever the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenging time in media.
Yes, it certainly is.
I've seen our newsroom shrink since I've been here in 2 years, and there's people like Trace Christensen who have seen it shrink over 30 years.
Right. Yep.
It's a challenging time, and we're trying to tell the story and get the word out in the community, and we appreciate the feedback. If you see something, give me a call, send me an email, send me a tweet, and let's have a conversation about this. And if you see something that needs coverage, I want to give it coverage. So, let me know.
Well, and the community is lucky to still have the dedicated ones doing the job like you are.
Thank you, sir.
So
I appreciate that.
thank you. Yeah. We'll stay in touch.
Yes, sir, of course.
Thank you, Dillon.
Yeah,
Dillon
thank you.
Davis, Battle Creek Enquirer, WBCK.